Hello, and welcome to another edition of Straight Talk with Don Chioffi. I am Don Chioffi, and today's program is going to be specifically about the 1% tax that has been proposed and will be on the ballot in the city of Rutland. And I'm honored today to be able to speak with the man in charge down in Rutland City, Mayor David Allaire. Welcome to the program, Dave.
Well, thank you, Don. I appreciate the invite.
It's good to have you here, and we're not going to waste any time because we have a limited time, and the vote is coming up March 7th, town meeting day. So I guess I'm going to start off by just asking you, Dave, what the history is and why now?
Well, I think that's a great lead-in because why now? I really do believe, questions like this, timing is everything. And the local option tax is something that we've bandied about, in the city for a number of years. When I was first elected in 2017, it was a possibility that I was going to bring it up, sooner rather than later. But once I got settled and found that we were in pretty good financial condition, the city as a whole, I felt it was something that we didn't want to bring forth at that time. It just didn't seem like the timing was right. And there was some opposition, not only in city government, but in the community. Not so much opposition as well as just not knowing what the benefits of a local option tax are. But now that more time has passed and more communities have jumped on board, and the fact that the town of Rutland has seen it be successful in their community, we entered into a discussion both publicly and behind the scenes about would this be the good time to do it. And it seems as though it is. We have near unanimous, if not unanimous, support from the Board of Aldermen, from my department heads, and from my administration that this is the right thing to do and it is the right time to help the citizens and help the taxpayers of the city of Rutland.
Well, timing is critical in this particular thing, and just as a disclaimer to the program, I mean, obviously I'm hosting the program, but I'm also the head of your adjacent community, and I was involved with this back actually before it started, when it was first offered by the legislature, and we tried it, and the timing and other conditions were not right at that time. It was about 2014, I believe, somewhere around 2014 or 15, and there was business opposition in the community because of a fear of losing tax revenue, and those of us that supported it, and myself included, realized that wasn't going to be a consideration, but we couldn't convince people at the time. Mm-hmm. So out of a hesitancy of loss of business, because it was new, they rejected it the first time. Mm-hmm. But after we had a reappraisal following that, and taxes went up considerably in the town, then people kind of came to their senses and figured we had to have a source of revenue. And to give people a background, and this is important too, a little historical background of where this came from. People need to know this. The legislature, when they enacted Act 60, and actually pulled off the greatest heist in the history of the state of Vermont, took all of our commercial industrial property up to the state and then redistributed it. They wanted to help out major cities like yours and others in the state, because infrastructure requirements and community needs in large communities are always greater than they are in the rural areas. I mean, it's just a fact of life. You have to provide a lot of services that smaller towns don't. So they did a kind of a Robin Hood plan, and we were a rich town, so we had to put in about at the time it was about $750,000 penalty per year. So the legislature authorized, they gave up their taxing authority in this 1% deal to the gold towns who were penalized, but they also allowed any charter community, such as yours is, to enact the 1% tax if they chose. And so that's where it came from. And when the people voted it in, our first our first returns were $750,000. The second year they were over $1 million, and they've consistently been over $1 million to $1.1 million. And last year they were $1.5 million.
Yeah, and I think the people in the city have seen that. They've seen it, the success that it's had in the town, and it hasn't changed buying behaviors really to any degree at all, if any. And other communities, again, are looking at outside sources of revenue. That's the discussion that we had. We were very concerned about the continuing increase in property taxes, whether they were, on the municipal side, it's been relatively flat. I've been able to manage the city budget pretty well. But school taxes, school expenses, I mean, this year I believe the school budget is going to go out in the March ballot for $71 million. Now, a bunch of that is federal money, but it's still, it's a huge number. And their per pupil cost continues to rise. And, at some point, people get to, they're just at a taxing threshold that they just can't stomach anymore. And I want to provide, and I think the Board of Aldermen feels the same way, some relief, some other option, and in an outside revenue source. And this is really the one and only that is substantial enough to provide that relief.
Well, it's a salient point that you make about the school costs being what they are, because one of the features of the 1% tax, as you know and as the citizen should know, is that the way the legislature set this up statutorily, 1% option tax money must be spent municipally, cannot be allocated to school funding. Because that's why they put it in there, as a rebound from the Act 60 penalties.
Yep.
So that'll be a municipal resource, which helps. But it's still a small amount in comparison to your total tax rate.
It is.
But it's got to help. And
it's going to help. Our projections now are in the area of between 1 and 1.2 million that we're going to be able to see in the first year and out years. And, that's 10 cents plus on our tax rate. It's not insignificant. It is going to help. It may not bring down property taxes, although we hope that it would a little bit, but it's certainly going to flatten things out and be able for us to do other things that we haven't been able to do.
Well, it depends on where you put it, too.
Yes.
I mean, the town dedicated those funds when they did the 1% tax. We dedicated them to specific areas that were going to, we felt, and it's proven itself true, we're going to reduce the burden on the taxpayers. Right? In other words, we didn't use it to expand things. We didn't use it for wants. We used it for needs.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're talking about in the city too, because we do feel there are needs. There's a couple of areas where we haven't been able to find the outside revenue source, and I've got a couple of notes here, and I want to make sure that I got it straight. And it is, we are putting together a capital improvement program. We put it down on paper several years ago, but we never had a funding source. Our buildings are all old. We're scattered all over the city. They're going to have needs. We don't want to go out to bond and have to spend taxpayers' money that way. This is going to be a dedicated source of funding for funding that capital improvement program, and also our pension deficit. We still have a fairly significant deficit in the pension, although we have been addressing it lately. The last few years since I got elected, we have put significant amount of money towards that, so it's improving. But this is going to help us get to where we need to be. So those two things, along with taxpayer relief, are the three dedicated places where we want to put this.
I see shades of Wendy Wilton coming in on the pension fund.
God bless her. She was,
she was steadfast.
She was steadfast, and sometimes it just takes that repeated message over a period of time for people to understand that it's a huge problem and it's not going away, and we want to keep our promises to our city employees, and we've been stepping up to the plate and doing that, and this is a way to get us to where we need to be.
Well, it's a good plan, and it's interesting. I was working over the statistics, and this discussion could go in so many different ways, Dave, as far as real cooperation between the city and the town. I mean, imitation is the best form of flattery. And quite frankly, I agree with you that when people look out, because I never, ever, ever miss an opportunity to tell people how successful the 1% tax has been for the town of Rutland. I mean, it pays for well over a third to a half of our total municipal budget. I mean, when you're taking in $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that the citizens ought to be aware of, is that it's also a compliment and a benefit to the entire state that you do this and that we did this, because this 1% tax, when it's levied, 30% of it comes off right at the get-go to go to the state.
Correct.
Now I've had people say, oh, the greedy state. No, wait a minute. I can criticize them as much as anybody can, but I'm willing to give credit where credit is due. That 30% that goes to the state goes directly into the pilot program. And the pilot program, that pilot is just an acronym which stands for Payment in Lieu of Taxes. And that's a fund that gives pretty much major municipalities like yours in Bennington and Springfield and wherever, Chittenden County, Burlington, but also small towns. Even the town gets a little bit. Payment in lieu of taxes is a gift, basically, an I'm sorry gift to the community, because state properties are tax exempt. You can't tax them.
Yeah.
So the state knows that, so they take from this payment in lieu of taxes fund, and they give a sum of money to you in return for hosting their services, and that's a good thing. And that's 30%. That's a lot, really.
So that's a great point, and that it just shows that the money will circulate back around and help to support that payment in lieu of taxes, which is actually huge for us here in the city because we have a number of state properties.
That's right.
You got the Russell office building downtown, the state office building. There's a number of other facilities around the community. So it does help support our property tax base. And I think the other important thing that we haven't mentioned in all of this is that the majority, and I don't know exactly what the breakdown is as far as percentages go, but the majority of the people that are going to be paying this local option tax are not going to be city taxpayers. They're going to be folks coming into the community, purchasing at our retail stores, the tourists, the business travelers. It's folks from the outlying communities. And, I shop at as much as I can at all the city businesses, but I also occasionally am down in the town and will shop at the retail businesses in the town. And to tell you the truth, I don't even notice it. It's not something that I look at on my slip to see how much with a 1% tax was I paid. I go out and I buy what I want to buy, and I'm happy doing that. And I think that's what people are going to notice.
Well, they do. They do. And people are not stupid, Dave. The difference in the taxation and the cost of the gasoline, even to get from my house in Rutland town down to the plaza, is a lot more than the 1% difference I might have to pay in any of those stores.
Right.
When gas was $1.89 and now it's $3 or whatever,
Right.
and skyrocketing. So it's not a critical amount. And you're right. It's a way of. Well, there have been many proposals made nationally and so forth of a general sales tax on all goods. Well, this is kind of the local equivalent of that, where everybody gets to participate in the support of the community. And
it's spreading the burden. It's spreading the burden.
It is, and it's a small amount, but in aggregate, it adds up and it helps, especially if you use it properly. I got some interesting statistics, and you may. Obviously, anybody can do the math, but a lot of people don't. They just hear 1% and they don't know what. The 1% tax, if you're successful with it, and I hope you are. I mean, I really don't see any detriments whatsoever to a 1% tax. I haven't heard anybody in the town ever complain about getting $1.1 million to offset their general budget and part of their police budget. But when you look at it, it's a 1% tax. And the receipts that you get, as we've mentioned, are 30% less than what they actually would be, because because the state takes the 30% out right away. So our 1.5 million that we received last year represents $150 million
In sales.
of sales at least, and put the 30% on top of that, it's even more in the town of Rutland. And if you do the same in the city, that's 3. I calculated what we've done since we instituted the tax back in 2016, when we anticipated, what did we anticipate? We anticipated 508. We actually got 750. Every year thereafter, we got $1.1 million. So totally, we had 12 million. If you go back and put the 30% in, this represents about 15 million, and this is about $1.2 billion of actual 1% taxable sales in Rutland Town over the years that we've.
It's a pretty amazing number when you consider, we're
That
relatively small communities here,
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what it shows, David? It shows our combined strength economically in this region. I mean, the economic driver of the region, and the amount of money that we generate for the state for the pilot program. It really is quite a meaningful figure when you look at it that way.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I've talked to one of the most recent associations I've gotten is on the board of the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and we talk about this up there on occasion. And the folks, the communities that are participating in this have seen nothing but success up to this point. I don't ever hear any negative, pushback on this at all. I think what's important for us, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about it today, is just getting the education out to the community and making sure they understand the benefits of this versus whatever downside there might be. And I don't really, like you said earlier, I don't see any downside to this. This is going to be a tremendous benefit for us, not just in this year, but going forward in the ensuing years.
Well, I think the people of the city of Rutland and the town have been pretty progressive in terms of their willingness to support infrastructure improvements. I mean, your bond issue is one perfect example. I mean, I'm sure you went into that with a little hesitancy too, and not surprisingly, because you have the pulse beat of the people, they approved it pretty much overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
It's a smart move.
Yeah.
You're paying on the pay-as-you-go plan.
Yeah.
It's the old vacuum cleaner salesman. Can you afford 25 cents a day?
Right. Right.
Well, it's a lot easier to spread it out like that. But
Yeah.
look at the results of it. I mean, people are driving around now and they're not seeing anywhere near as many potholes.
Absolutely. And I will give credit to my predecessor as well as, continuing the program when I took over. The infrastructure, the people of the city have just been overwhelmingly supportive of not just the infrastructure underneath and the pipes and the work that we need to do on that, but the paving and the sidewalks. I mean, I heard that a lot in the earlier campaigns. Let's get to work on our paving and our side. It just creates an atmosphere, a welcoming atmosphere into our neighborhoods, and encourages people to improve their homes, and it just has a benefit for the whole region.
Well, we've been thrust into a lot of things, Dave, from statewide policy and just society and societal changes the way they are. and a lot of people tend to want to focus on the negative. I read about it, I read about it on Facebook and I read about it in the paper, and it's hard. It's hard. The media has to report the news, and if it bleeds, it leads in the paper. So it's always easier to write about the drug busts and et cetera, than it is to write about the good things. And this is certainly a really, really good thing, and it's an investment in the community. But people have got to realize that the challenges on government leaders at all levels and public servants is absolutely incredible in this climate.
Yeah, it is. There's so much division in our politics, and it's really kind of be frustrating at times. You know, you want to sit down and be able to work with people who may not see things the same way you do. And actually, we're still pretty lucky here locally that we're able to do that. I mean, we have our differences, but we're able to, you know, work things out and, you know, shake hands at the end of the day and go our separate ways. But, you know, you see it in state politics now, very much so up in Montpelier to some degree, and certainly in our national politics, very divisive. You know, things that we need at the local level don't ever get down to us, or it takes forever to get something done. So that can be frustrating. And for people at home that watch that on the news all the time, they get frustrated and they say, you know, geez, you know, I've elected so-and-so, or this person is supposed to be doing this, and, you know, it just doesn't ever seem to get done. But I can tell you, the city and the town, I think that we still have a lot of civility, a lot of respect for each other. The city and the town, I think, are working closer than they ever have. I'm very proud of that, and I thank you for your leadership in that realm. And this local option tax is a perfect example, but you can see it in other ways. So, you know, that's good for the whole region, because the city and town is the hub for Rutland County. And, you know, we're still 60,000 strong here in the county. And what we do here reverberates throughout.
Well, you know, it would be easy, and I have taken a slightly different position early on in this thing, because obviously, as I mentioned, the legislature intended this primarily to be for the gold towns that they penalized under Act 60 in order to get some money back. I didn't so much criticize or disagree with charter communities having the right to do it, because, well, that's part of the government of the community. The charter is what authorizes you to do what you do. Mm-hmm. What I was opposing was other communities that weren't charter communities, mm-hmm. for instance, like Brandon. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame them for doing it. I mean, you do what you got to do. Yeah. But they saw this loophole and said, well, we can't get the 1% because we're not a gold town, but if we were a charter town, we could. So then they set their plans in motion to become a charter community, mm-hmm. and they did. And they didn't have a very long charter. I think you could write it on half a sheet of paper, mm-hmm. but they got it approved, a charter community, and they did the 1%. Yep. But I've come to realize that as long as they don't take it away from us, I shouldn't be jealous of somebody else wanting to take advantage mm-hmm. of that program, mm-hmm. because, well, let's face it, for one thing, it levels the playing field. Mm-hmm. One of the arguments that people had back in the beginning was, well, if we do this and the city doesn't, people are going to abandon us. They're going to go shop in the city because it doesn't have one, or they're going to go to New Hampshire because they don't have a 1% tax, or they're going to go someplace else and shop. Mm-hmm. Well, once you do this, there'll be a 1% tax in both communities. Right. There's no advantage to going either place. You just go where you want to go.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we're all going to benefit for it.
That's correct.
Yeah, yeah. You know, this would be a good chance to just talk a little bit about, I know there's a little bit of a small movement up in Montpelier about perhaps revoking the ability of communities to levy the 1%. And I think that there's some concern about the education fund and what it might, take away from them. But I don't think it's getting any traction. I certainly hope not. This is something that more and more communities are realizing that it's a benefit to them. It's a benefit for their long-term stability, and to provide that relief to really overstrap property taxpayers in a lot of our communities. You know, Rutland City is one of the higher tax communities in Vermont. It just can't shoulder, very much more, and this is going to provide that relief for them. And I hope that any movement the other way will not take hold. I don't think it will. From what I understand, there's a lot of support for continuing this, especially for the communities that already have it. So.
Well, there is, and not only that, but there's very strong leadership from the top level in state government, because the governor's been very, very specific about the fact that whatever solutions that he comes up with budget-wise, and especially in terms of this dispatch situation that we have down here, he said, I don't want to approve anything that puts an additional state burden on people with taxes. So the fact that the legislature relinquished their right for this 1% in order to give communities a lift, why would you take that lift away from them? If even the thought of doing this means that what you're saying to the communities is, well, we're going to take this back, and you've been used to this revenue to do good things for your community, so now if you want to do it, you're going to have to increase property taxes. Well, isn't that a wonderful thing to say to people? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, not so much. And, I guess that worry comes from the state wanting to manage and oversee almost everything that goes on in our communities. And we see it a lot in the different areas, public safety, zoning. There's just an awful lot of different areas where the state wants to kind of overtake the control and take away some of the local control that we have. And that's just not a good way to go. Every community is different. We need to have our local officials be able to, have some say, and our local citizens have some say about how they run their towns.
Well, people out there have been told this before, and I'm sure that they understand that it's true, is that the best monies that are ever spent in government are the monies that are spent locally. Anytime you send your money further away, less of it always comes back, either in services or whatever, because more bureaucracy will ensue.
No question.
In order to provide it and so forth. So
no question.
You don't stand to get anywhere close to 100% back when you send it away. But if you keep it locally, the people can see basically they can see every single dime of that money.
Yep. That's true transparency. I mean, you hear that term all the time, but that's exactly what it is. People want to understand and know where their money's going, and it's what it's being used for, and what's the outcome of spending that money. And sending it up to Montpelier isn't necessarily the best way to do it. Keeping it as local as you possibly can. That's why, and that's from somebody who's, we're in a receiving town, in the city of Rutland. We've overall financially benefited from Act 60, but, again, local control is the way to go.
Well, the whole purposes of that penalty money was to put it into education. So, again, when we look at these things from a government point of view, you can look at it as a penalty to the town that you're getting the money, or you can look at it as a benefit. I choose to look at it as a benefit because when I look at our educational system, we have hundreds and hundreds of students that are attending your schools.
Yes,
and so they're getting the benefit of that educational money that's going in there.
That's very
because
true.
They have a strong educational system that they can access. And we're also good taxpayers to you guys. I think we're one of your best, if not your biggest taxpayer between water and sewer and school and whatever. And that is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely is. Yeah, that's what keeps both of our communities thriving.
That's what makes you stronger.
Yes, no question about it.
And, I think these kinds of things where you're using the example of Rutland Town and the success of Rutland Town with the 1% tax to benefit your own community is a wise move. And I commend you on it. We're getting to the end here, so I want to make a pitch. I want to make a pitch to all of the citizens of the community, Rutland City and Rutland Town and everywhere, but especially Rutland City, because that's what we're talking about here today with the mayor, to get out and vote. There's no better gift that a government can ever give its people than the freedom in a democracy to choose to govern yourselves. And you have an opportunity to do this on March 7th. Go to the polls, support the 1% tax. You won't be sorry to see where the money goes. Thank you again,
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
And good luck with the 1% tax in March.
Thank you.